Okay. All right. So we can start. All right. Okay, guys. So I'm here with Danielle-Nicole Robinson. This is going to be a very special episode tonight. Hello.
Hello. Good to be here. Good to be in this fight. It's good we're in this fight.
Absolutely. You know, about a year ago, actually a little bit more than a year ago, you came over to hang at the house and we were talking about problems in the country, not necessarily needing to be solved in a political fashion, and there may not be a political solution for all this. And you said,
well, one, I started with the idea that school choice was important. I was a product of school choice. It was very important in my life growing up in, a harsh neighborhood in Brooklyn, being able to focus on math and sciences and kind of grow and have good careers. That whole pathway was important. And I just felt like we both felt like that education was kind of losing that brass tacks basis of math and sciences, doing what's necessary to prepare our kids for jobs. It started switching over to do this other stuff. And it's funny because CRT hadn't reared its head in the way that we've seen it going now. And I think that's been the biggest thing about why I'm so glad we're here to kind of let people know that this is going on and why it's not good for our students or our society.
right. I mean, we knew in January of last year, we knew something was wrong and that there was a focus on things that were not academic. There was the Black Lives Matter movement had just taken everything by storm and twisted things, and it become, far beyond what its mandate was, right, for civil rights, which is important.
Yeah.
And we saw it, encroaching in the education realm. You're right. We didn't know. There's a couple things we didn't know. We didn't know that we were so far gone. When you and I were talking about it, we were like, wow, what if? And then we're like, oh, damn, we're here. And
now we're being overcome by it, attempting to be at least.
We were already submerged without even knowing it. And then we talked about how difficult we thought it would be to get parents to get over that barrier of being called a racist, right? Because anytime that you're talking about things, you are criticized as that. And so what, flash forward now to where we are is that parents who are Hispanic, Asian, Indian, Black, white, I mean, this is kind of what has united all of us in that schools are for learning. They're for, as you've always said, brass tacks stuff. And that's not being done, whether it's transgenderism that they're pushing, because we didn't even know that then. And in fact, I want to tell you guys a story. I said, and I believe it was just right after the election, maybe a little bit longer than that, but I said Wake County voted, the school board, their first act, when they got in, they voted to put boys and girls in the same bathrooms on a sports team. And I said, listen, damn it, no, just no. And then you were like, I don't know, Sloan, this is a bit, of a dicey issue. That's how we started to get people interested in our group, is we just went out there. I went out there, then you trusted kind of what I was doing. You're like, okay. And the first people we got in this movement, and this is very interesting, you guys, were young Black males, unmarried, without children, because they had seen for years the feminization of Black males, also Latino males, the feminization, and no one really had stood up and pointed their finger at it and said, hey, this is wrong.
Right. And I would say pretty much what we started seeing when it came to whether transgender, boys in the girls' bathroom, CRT, we're starting to find education becoming about everything else than just the focus of why we send our children to school. And it's like, when we looked at that, we are literally wrestling for our kids' minds, the ability to be productive in this society and not just indoctrinated by all of these other things. That's really what firmed us up. It's like, well, what's going on with education? Because we knew our kids, the kids, you look at the stats, the kids weren't on reading level. They weren't doing good on math level. And then all of a sudden you have all of this other stuff coming in. What's going on?
And quite honestly, we didn't know then, back in January, that teachers had to contend with learning all this crap. I mean, we're seeing teachers quit for no other reason than they're having to do 80 hours of unpaid training on equity. And really, this equity training, it presupposes that teachers are racist. So it's really a kind of an insulting exercise for teachers to have to do. And the other trainings on social emotional learning is like, okay, we can computerize this handy dandy little algorithm so that you can know how your kids are feeling. And they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm not an idiot and I love children. So, I get that. So we're not only degrading the quality of education, we're losing really good teachers too.
Yeah, it's having an effect all around, because pretty much what's happening is no one is feeling comfortable in the schools anymore. I mean, we took the idea that we know racism is bad. Absolutely. We know that racism still does occur, right? We know that there's bad people in the world, period. Let's get away from it being like a black and white issue. There's just horrible people in this world that do horrible things. Now that we've established that fact, what we can't do is take that as the basis to try to train people in such a way that we make that a focus, and we make kids, they're not learning, they're not comfortable in schools, the teachers are not comfortable in schools, the parents aren't comfortable at all because they don't even know what they can speak up and talk about. And when you look at how CRT, all of the bills that are being proposed, all of the money that's being spent, and Sloan, you can speak to that, all of the money that's being spent across the US to push CRT, I mean, it's really a disservice to our children, because pretty much this idea that we're actively teaching children to judge people by their skin color, reverting them to see things through a skin colored lens. We've done that before. In America, that's like a dog returning to its vomit. CRT is a regression in humanity, and it has no place being taught alongside of math and sciences in schools.
Absolutely. And it's actually embedded in math and science. And look, we cannot deny that there is an achievement gap. When you look at the scores between Black and white students, there's a gap, and we need to find out how to close that gap, whatever it is. But I get the feeling that in many states, ours included, and especially, the state has just given up. They're like, you know what? It's because teachers are racist. Yeah, that's it. Well, no, it's not. And moreover, they're removing merit from all the classes, and then they're pointing at Black students, and they're saying, well, we have to do it because you guys can't learn and it's their fault. That is a lot.
And I find that insulting, because when you look at it, right? So there are certain issues that, Black and brown children, minority children face that are maybe a little bit disproportionate to society. Sorry, home at the kids' desk.
Is this cooking show, or are we talking about Ed First Alliance?
Yeah, I know, right? So today's show, no. And it's just this idea that Black children can't overcome the social traumas of maybe, single parent households, gun violence in the neighborhoods, drugs, gangs, all of that stuff. It's this idea that society states that we can't overcome that. That's the part that's insulting about this, because we can. And I want to kind of point us back to, just a hop, skip, and jump out of slavery during Reconstruction. Here, we're in North Carolina. Here, there's the story of Paris Street, which is in Durham, North Carolina. And you want to talk about Black Wall Street. You want to talk about, children only 1 or 2 generations out of slavery. They're running for office. They're opening up colleges. They're opening up hospitals. They're developing neighborhoods. This idea that Black people can't overcome, or minorities or anyone can't overcome trauma, I think it's a horrible message that we're sending to people, where we say, because of what you went through, we don't think you can handle this. We don't think you can learn this. That's not your call to do. Your call is to provide the information, because we have done it before. You know, current society seems to forget that because we don't share the stories of Black Wall Streets and the Black Wall Streets that, and the one in Durham, actually a lot of people don't know this, but the one in Durham at Paris Street actually happened earlier than the Tulsa one that's famous. We only hear about the Tulsa one because it was burned down and Black people were burned out. But the one in Durham naturally died out. But all of that to say is there are these stories of Black excellence and minority excellence across the country. And it was closer to slavery, closer to discrimination, it's closer to Jim Crow and all of that, more than we are now. So this idea that things have got to be dumbed down for us, it's not a good message to send to minority children. Not only that, you know, skin color, you know, and maybe people need to say this plainly, skin color doesn't make anybody inferior or superior. It's just what we are and our culture. It's what we learn up here. It's the knowledge that we learn that makes us successful, that makes us able to get ahead. So there's no favors being done to minority children by saying that, you know, math is too tough for us to learn and it's racist to assume that we can, you know, say 2 and 2 is 4. Once you start taking 2 and 2 is 4 away from minority children to be able to learn that, that's stifling our life and our growth. If you can't get through 2 and 2 is 4, where are you going to go, Sloan? Where are you going to go with that?
Well, here I am. I'm not good at math. That's a little joke, but no, it's actually true. But you know, what's very upsetting is, I've had a year to kind of dissect these curriculums and to look at the teacher training and things like that, but they're actually telling Black children in particular that, hey, America is not yours. You're not wanted. And that's the message they're sending. And I've heard that time and again in these teachings. I have to tell you, it is trying to rob Black children of their birthright. That, you know, as you know, I mean, Black people have built this country. They've died for this country. They defend this country. They lead this country. And to remove all of that from the narrative that we're teaching Black children and that the government is doing this in our name, that's racism.
Well, I will say this, when it comes to, you know, Black people and the government, you know, we don't have a solid relationship with the government anyway, because it's been on one side or the other side. It's either stringing us up or now it's trying to, you know, neuter us mentally. Well, neuter is an animal term. But anyway, the point is, it's trying to cut us off from, you know, our thinking. I will say this, and that is, even though we don't have the best history with how we came to this country, it didn't stop it from being ours in the sense of we go back as well, not longer than Native Americans, but we go back as far as just anybody. And all of that to say is, this idea, and let's kind of just pull it from it, because what you're mentioning is right. They try to tell us, you know, now that, you know, we're not wanted, that, you know, with white privilege, right? The opposite of white privilege has to be what? Black less privilege, like us being in our own skin is at a deficit, you know, and we're sending all of these messages to Black children. But here's what we've got to realize. And that's where parents come in, and that's where, you know, the role of parents is increasingly important, you know, when it comes to their child's education and in their child's lives. And then, of course, faith plays that part as well. But you don't need anybody to want you but you. These are the messages that we tell ourselves. Let me tell you how, because Black people, we're a very strong people. We've gone through a lot, we've taken a lot, we've gotten up from a lot. You don't have to be wanted by anybody. You don't even really have to be noticed by anybody, but you take what you have and you go for it and you learn and you make something for yourself. There's more easy money to be had out here than ever before. There is no barriers to success now like there was back then. So when we send these messages that kind of dull down the enthusiasm of minority students, makes them feel like they're less than, then we start limiting the access they have to things like, you know, I keep focusing on math and sciences because that made a difference to me. I wasn't good at math either, Sloan, but I started to study it and I learned it. And then all of a sudden I went to school for a degree in accounting. So all of that is the idea that we can come up from the traumas that we've gone through. Stop telling us that we're not going to be any more than what we went through.
Right. Right. Well, they're weaponizing 400-year-old history against actually everyone. And that's, that can never work. So when we talk about, white privilege and the equity gap and a lot of these things, I mean, you're also discounting students that were like me. I mean, I was a foster child and went to several group homes, et cetera, and then eventually ended up quitting school. And I have dyscalculia where I actually read numbers backwards when they were, in long form. And so if the traditional meaning of equity always was, and I believe in this, is giving children extra supports to be able to fulfill and reach the equal opportunity that they need. Now, a kid like me with my background, it would automatically be written off wholesale because I am white, right? So equity wouldn't mean that I would actually get the supports that I'm glad that I got to succeed. But, that's the problem, is that particularly in North Carolina, there's a tremendous amount of low wealth communities and rural communities where you have people that are white and children that are white. And I just wonder, if they're actually getting the supports that they need, because we need to help every child.
Now, I will say, we do have to be honest on some things here, right? It is harder when you come from a lower income background, right? Listen, it's better to be, to come from, and sometimes they say no, because sometimes, being from the Brooklyn persuasion myself, and even listening to some of the rappers, right, that have come up, and they will tell you, I wish I didn't have to grow up the way I did, but I learned so much from it. Like, there's always things that we can glean from our circumstances that we can use to propel us forward. But I want to talk about your equity. That word equity, I've never seen a word that was supposed to mean something good, right? Because typically when you had equity in something, that means you had an asset. It was something of value. It was something
you have a stake in something.
Exactly. And now equity has become this thing that chops everyone off at the knees. It's become the most limiting concept, because it's this idea that, equity, hey, we all can't start from the same spot. We all can't start from the same starting line. Like, that's a false thing to push. We all can't grow up in 2-parent households with X amount of money. You've got people, America is very much an immigrant nation. Yeah, you're in foster care. You know what I mean? Even though you were white, you were in foster care. Yeah. Where was your part of the privilege? I guess you just got shorted when it comes to that. But, we've got immigrants coming here from, different nations, and they start with no language skills and no money and no family. I mean, sometimes they just show up here. I don't know if it's off a boat or they walked or in a plane, whatever, but they leave everything behind to come here. This idea of everybody starting from the same line is a false hope to push people. It makes people upset at the starting line, but it keeps them from looking at the goal, because forward is the opportunity we all have to get to. Forward and up is where we can go. And as long as we still have access to education, and now with even online training, let's take a look at this song, because I want to introduce this as well on why, this, K through 12 education is important. You've got companies like Google, Bank of America, IBM, starting to say now that we don't even need a college degree to get a job there. Now that's huge, right?
Yeah.
They're having this focus when it comes to skills. Now, of course, there's certain things you've got to learn, programming and all of that stuff. But when we look at the fight and the push for CRT in K through 12, any money spent on that is a disservice when we could be having our high schoolers learn job skills that can have them not stuck in college loans. Everybody's fighting for free college, which was a promise that no one's ever going to see, right? It was a promise that was offered and, as you know, hasn't been delivered on. But instead of people trying to rack up money in college loan debt, if we can focus on getting them better qualitative, quantitative education in K through 12, it's going to set them up to do better, because at the end of the day, Black people, Latino people, we don't need white people feeling bad about themselves to help us with what we're going through. We need the ways to be able to feed and support our families, to come together in 2-parent households, to be for things and not have to live off government assistance, to be able to raise our children in families where we're able to supply their needs. Daddy got it, mommy got it. We can cover, daycare and everything else. So that's what we need to be focused on. CRT is a ripoff education that should be happening for our children, whether it's computers. I don't care if it's trades. I don't care if we're teaching, young girls to be, in construction, or, young girls, because so many things. What should be gender neutral is the fact that everybody can, do any kind of job, so to speak. However, we should be training people to be electricians and all that stuff. I don't care what it is.
Big money.
On CRT is not it.
Big money. Electricians, we're in the wrong field, honey.
I know.
I know.
HVAC. Do you know how much in the summertime HVAC people, we're talking about bringing over $100,000 a year, and all of those are just apprenticeship level things. We should be bringing trades back to school.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I believe that that's a direction that that at least our state is talking about bringing back, and I fully agree with it. But again, you've got typically these educrat elites who are pushing this stuff, and what they're doing is they're robbing our children, all children, of educational options. And really what we need is options. And if you do not equip young ones with the knowledge, right, to do these things, and they're being introduced now to age inappropriate concepts, racist concepts. I mean, girl, we've got disabled 3 and 4-year-olds now. The state is paying $7 million to train teachers on how to teach them how to deconstruct whiteness.
Because now what's funny, right? I read an article where Mark Zuckerberg's daughter was learning how to code at 5, but we're up here teaching young kids how to deconstruct whiteness, because they're going to get somewhere real fast, quick with that.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And as you know, no one comes out harder, faster, and stronger against the people that are signing the contracts to do this stuff. I mean, look, whoever thinks that crap is a good idea should be held up for ridicule and should be held accountable. And that's what, unfortunately, that we have to do. We also have to applaud the good things. So for whatever reason, and I'm not going to read anything into it, but Governor Cooper has declared that this is the week of school choice, even though he has spent years and years trying to defund school choice.
Yeah, right.
What do you think?
Well, I'm suspect anyway. Why? Because he has not been a fan or supportive of school choice. I think it's lip service, but whatever, right? We'll take the lip service, because at the end of the day, right, I care about, and I speak about Black and brown and Latino a lot, not just because I'm Black, though I love it. And you love you. Everybody just love themselves, right? You love you. I love me.
But I love you too. I love you too.
But it's because everyone wants to keep using our pain as a scapegoat for their platforms and their issues, and we're always the one getting left behind. Now, when you speak about Governor Cooper saying, this is school choice week, I think it's lip service, but hey, it's out there, right? Because at the end of the day, parents have to start deciding for their children. And you spoke about the feminizing of young males and the lack of protection of females, especially what we saw happen in Virginia, where, you had a young male student was able to play an administration twice, go in and rape 2 girls. I mean, let's talk about,
happening in Charlotte in the bathrooms, happening in Charlotte. And then the girls will complain, Danielle, and the girls get kicked out of school.
Exactly. And then parents, right? Parents now are now seen as enemy number one. So the fact that it's out there, it's because we need to start discussing, is the public school system, forget about the fact that, we're challenging the curriculum. Forget about the fact that the stats show that they're not coming out at reading level. They're not coming out on math proper grade levels. Now they're not even safe in schools. No, the discussion needs to be had. Is public school, and I'm a child of public school as well initially, until my parents were able to make the decision and I was able to have the programs available, right? Let's keep, letting people know that that's important. Making sure that the programs are available, that the public school system might not be for them. And it's okay for parents to look at that and say, maybe this is not for us, without feeling like the weight of the world, like you pulling your children out of public school is doing a disservice to everyone. No, parents, you need to start worrying about your children, worrying about what's happening to them and keeping them safe.
Absolutely. And one of the great things that came out of the budget that was passed this year was a lot more money for opportunity scholarships. I don't actually have the numbers right in front of me, but I mean, there's a significant amount of money behind that. And I know our early goal with First Alliance was to rescue 1,000 or 500 families right out of the public school system. And I mean, that's still our goal. We actually were fighting on a lot of fronts here. But
absolutely, sitting down with senators, discussing with them, hey, this is
right.
This is what we need.
Right. And we made a lot of progress on that. And actually in the bill they passed for the opportunity scholarships, they did include money for nonprofits like ours and others to actually walk families through what it's like to apply for these opportunity scholarships, because there's deadlines and timing, and to qualify for rides, got to have transportation. And Danielle, you taught me this too, and I should have remembered from my schooling, but you got to have the lunch program, because a lot of these, you have to have that for foster kids, working families now, single moms, you got to have all that. So I think that General Assembly, particularly on one side of the General Assembly, has really come a long way and is making school choice reachable for all families.
And that's where we come in and, we fill in the gaps, right? Because they come with the, educational opportunity scholarships and grants, right? But then they kind of forget about the feeding program, which is important, right? Because if they can go to the school, but, the parents don't have the money to send them to eat, that's where we step in and we do this. But, Sloan, I remember being at the whiteboard on the second floor. And one of the things that we wrote was, Education First Alliance, what we were going to do was fight for dignity in education. And that dignity comes with being able to go to school and just learn the math, the science, the writing, the language arts, all of that kind of stuff.
And feel safe about who you are.
Feel safe about who you are. Feel like you have the space to develop genuine, character-based relationships with the students with you, that you could trust that your teachers only wanted to educate you for what you needed to go forward. They didn't want to try to take the place of your parents, right? Like exactly. Like our organization fights for dignity of education for parents, for teachers, for students. That's what we're here for. That's community. And right now, I think the public school system and the current political ploys to just push that agenda into education, it's really scattered the dignity of everyone. It's affecting. And I want to pull up here because a lot of people still don't know what CRT is. I think people still don't know. They think it's some kind of like legitimate science fact type thing. It is not. Let's just do a blank Google search, on critical race theory to see what it says here. And it says critical race theory is a cross-disciplinary intellectual and social movement. We are pushing a social movement over education. Leave social to parents. Parents, I have always fought. I'm here in my kitchen. I have always fought for parents to speak into their children whatever they like. Some unfortunately speak death, some speak life. Everyone's got access to parent their child the way they want. Schools do not need to be having social movements to replace what the role of parents are in a child's life.
I mean, we have the establishment clause, and of course that means that not one thin dime of public funding can go towards promoting religion. And yet it can go towards promoting the religion of race essentialism. And that has got to
be gender issues.
And gender, exactly. But of course, when you say that, hey, Johnny, you could be any gender that you want, that of course means that God makes mistakes. And of course, that is a violation of, personally held values of me. I'm Jewish, Christianity, Muslims. And so, offending religions apparently is not a big deal. And I'm telling you, we need some more public interest lawyers to come in here and just sue the hell out of people, because this is none of this is legal. And I talked to Bill Jacobson about this earlier from Legal Insurrection. And, unfortunately, when you're going up against the government and you're just a rank and file parent and you're suing, these things can take, a year or more and drain funds. And so school choice can be the only option out.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say this here too, because when we come against CRT, right, and we come against transgender, we're not coming, let's start with CRT. We're not coming against fairness. We're not coming against, CRT because we're for racism. We're for, let's start, reclaiming the fact that just that we want to be for education as the way it's always been before it's been polluted with all of this other stuff is not is not us trying to be hateful. I think that there's this narrative out there that anybody that's against CRT is, racist, and anyone that's against, gender choices in school. No, we always respect your choice. You have the ability to have your choice, but you can't force your choice on others. Right. You bring up someone, it comes about, you can't force religion and all that stuff. If we're going to keep it neutral, keep it neutral. But education system is not neutral right now. You have all of these other agendas coming in, and we're like, you know what? If we want to keep everything out, let's keep everything out. But we're not going to push things onto parents. We're not going to push things onto children. Just because they wanted to do an essay, on a book, they should not have to question their gender. Now, if they have those questions, guess what? Guide them back to the parents who birthed them.
Right.
And created them. That's not your job to do.
Amen. No, a lot of people, the teachers are saying, look, hey, by the way, not many teachers. We got a lot of good ones, but they're saying, look, parents, when you drop them off at the door, you've relinquished all your rights. No, we've got to start taking them back.
That's right. And that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for parents' voices to still be the loudest voices in a child's life. And I'm not trying to, and neither are we. We're not trying to create hostile relationships between students and teachers, but we've got to always slant everything in the direction of the parents who created them and the cultures that they have and what's important to them. That always has to stay first. And the way education was before it got all kind of toxic is where it's at now, is that was always separate, and children, played together, teachers were trusted, right. School was safe as possible. And we just need to get back to that.
Yeah. And we want to restore merit and morality back to the school system, because when you do that, it makes America great again on the world stage, because we're the most moral nation. We have the most moral fighting force next to Israel, of course, as well. I mean, and merit. I mean, those are the things that make America, America, and it just gave us our greatness. And now, I mean, you've got the UK, you've got France, and the list is growing of nations that they don't want what we're selling. They don't want this critical race theory. They
don't. China, and it's funny. I read an article about China, right? They were, the first ones hit and ransacked by the virus. Yet they have bounced back in education. They have bounced back in ways that we're still struggling with our students, with learning loss and just everything else. They don't want what we're selling.
No.
They don't want it because they know it's destructive.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that China has done, including COVID, but yes. So, yeah, I mean, so that type of export people are not looking for. So I'm glad we had this conversation tonight, because we've really talked about it all. I mean, school choice is important. All these movements really, I mean, when you zoom out of it, because it's such an emotional issue, when you zoom out of it, it is robbing kids of education. And I even tell people that are like, they're not parents. And they're like, I don't have a horse in the race. Well, yes, you do. Because in 10 years, who do you think is going to be your doctor? Who do you think is going to be doing your taxes? Who do you think is going to be doing all this stuff? Because guess what? The people that are coming through school, they've got a lot. They'll be leading the country, and you will regret not getting involved. And then at that point, people were like, oh, okay, pay attention. So what I want to challenge everyone to do tonight, first of all, pick 10 friends, share it with 10. The next day, beep, 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 beep. You're going to call them up and say, hey, what did you think? They're going to say, oh, I didn't get a time to watch. Okay. Well, don't call my ass again until you watch this. And we're going to talk about it. You've got to share. We're in an information war. But I also want you to go out on a limb and start discussing these issues this isn't a political issue. What we're talking about is not political. It is common sense. Everybody has a stake in this. We've seen crime explode. That's not by accident. I mean, they meaning the government is ginning up hatred. The government is not working, and it's up to the people to take it back. And the people that are most affected, Sally, are the people, Danielle, really that are not even participating in the political process at all now.
Yeah. And I think that, and number one, right. And make sure that, you follow us at Education First Lines. We are on the front lines of letting you know where your rights are being stripped as parents when it comes to your child's education. I mean, I want to bring a little bit back to how schools are overstepping parents. When you say, Sloan, that it's not a political issue, it is not. That's one thing on either side of the aisle. We've got to be able to come together and say, hey, but our kids are off limits. I don't care what other battle is going on about this or that, but our kids are off limits. We need our children to be in school systems.
Baby children.
And yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, when we talk about you broke as well about the surveys being done where parents had no idea that their children were being asked, how share some of that here. How long are you at the home by yourself? Who did your parents vote for? I mean, look at the things that they're doing to your children. They're supposed to be just going to school, but you can share some of that, Sloan, because I think it's key to kind of remind people that you can't afford to not be involved in this fight. It's not political. It's just what's going on in our schools and tapping into organizations like ours and knowing what's going on so you can say, wait, but am I okay with this? Was this my intention for sending my child to school?
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody has a stake in this. When we talk about children being abused on a mass scale at the hands of our own government in our name, it's everybody's business, and we have to pay for the pleasure, if you will, of having this done. It's everybody's interest, and that's why, again, it's very important for you guys to, I don't care if it's sharing posts. I mean, a lot of people haven't shared a Facebook post that would talk about something like this. So we meet people where they are. If it's that, then do that. If it's talking to people at church, do that. This isn't political. This is, this is doing your civic duty, and by all means, you have to, keep up with your civic duty because it is a responsibility. You're going to get the kind of community that you actually work for. A lot of us haven't been working. A lot of us on the bright side haven't been working, but the people on the dark side have been doing double duty working, right? So now we're left, right, to dig out of the morass. And that's what you see here is a lot of moms coming to this. I mean, we have now 26 different chapters, Danielle, across the state. And so we've got, people in California and Rhode Island, Indiana, Nevada. But what we have found is that in North Carolina, we are pretty much more far gone than any other state in the union. Why is that? Because a lot of people think their civic duty is voting and that's it. And it's people on one side of the aisle who are like that. We get a candidate, we vote him in, and Godspeed. Well, now we're understanding. It's not, Yeah.
And I think that that is the, a testament to just, us here in North Carolina being watchdogs. We need to be watchmen of what's going on, guys. I don't care what state you're in. If we don't have a chapter there yet, just reach out to us. We'll lead you in how to get it started, but we need more watchmen on the wall to be watching and bringing forth what's going on.
Right, because that's how you get accountability. And it may not be fun, and I can speak from personal experience that, yeah, people will come for you. But look, I mean, when you're over the target, you take the most flack. And, that's what we have to do to take back our republic. So, Danielle, I want to thank you. It's very nice to talk to you again. And we're going to see a lot more of Danielle. And she's going to keep us posted on legislatively what's going on. And then maybe talk a little bit about school board meetings or school board candidacy and how to get into that. I don't know, but we'll explore that.
Yes.
All right. So tomorrow night, I just want to tell you guys, we have actually my cousin, Heather Crislip Vance, and she's going to be talking about how to make the transition from public or private school into homeschooling in 5 easy steps. It's pretty simple to do it. I've done everything. I've done homeschooling. I've done public and private. And it can be done. So I want you guys to tune in tomorrow night, 8 p.m. on all of our live channels. So again, how many people are they supposed to share this with, Danielle?
10.
10. Don't disappoint us. Good night, guys.
Good night.